So we're going to take a look back at those coordinates, but this time we're going to look for something different. We're going to look for the midpoint. Now the midpoint means the coordinate on the graph that would divide a line segment exactly in half. And so again, here's a formula for it. If we have a starting point x1, y1 and an ending point x2, y2, this is a coordinate, so this is actually going to be a location on the graph. It's not a distance. It's going to tell us where on the graph is the midpoint, where is the center of that line segment. And so whenever we want to cut something in half, look what we do. We take the x values, this time we're adding them up to take their average, cut them in half, and we're taking the y values, adding them up and cutting them in half. This is a coordinate, so this makes sense that this is an x value and this is a y value, and it's an actual location on the graph. Oh, look, I'm missing a number here. So in our problem, we had, from before when we were doing distance, the coordinate 1, 5 and the coordinate 4, -1. So ignore the formula for a second and just kind of look. Where would the midpoint be if you had to guess? Well, it would be the point, the physical coordinate on the graph that kind of made an equidistant location here. Now I'm estimating this. Of course I know the answer, so my estimate's pretty good. But I just want you to focus on what the meaning is. The meaning is the actual coordinate here that would cut this line segment in half. So I'm going to take the x values, 1 and 4, cut them in half. And I'm going to take the y values, 5 and -1, cut them in half. I don't think I need a calculator for this, y'all. 1 plus 4 is 5 over 2. 5 plus a -1 is 4 over 2. I'm going to leave this as a reduced improper fraction, 5 halves and 2. Now 5 halves is 2.5 if that helps you, because now look it, here's 2 and 3, so here's 2.5 on the x and 2 on the y, and so that makes sense that our midpoint is there. The formula stays the same even if you're working with fractions. So here's that problem we did for distance before, but just before we get to the formula, take a look here. Where might you think the midpoint might be? Well, it's going to be an actual location somewhere in the middle of that line, maybe somewhere over here. So this time, you're going to go ahead and plug in the formula. Take the x values, 1/2 and 3/4, cut them in half. Take the y values, -1/2 and 1/2, cut them in half. Always x's, always y's. So I'll show you on my calculator how I did this. I think I'll just use one calculator this time, and you can practice on your calculator at home. But basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take 1/2 plus 3/4. I want to make that a fraction because my problem started in fractions. There's my 5/4. This one, can you do it in your head? What's -1/2 plus +1/2? It's 0. I mean, I guess if you couldn't, you could double check here if you weren't sure. It's 0. Now, this is a fraction in a fraction. This is not how you ever want to leave an answer. So going back to that one, if I do 5/4 divided by 2, my calculator does it for me, but I don't want decimals, so I'm going to change that back to a fraction. There's the 5/8. So, and 0 divided by 2 is 0. So 5/8 is between 1/2 and 3/4. There's 0 on the y, so that looks like a good location. So if you're not confident about your fractions, either go see a tutor to get better at fractions, or spend a lot of time making sure you understand the fraction buttons on your calculator so that you can move forward with the actual college algebra content and not waste too much time on the fraction content.